better be safe than sorry, make sure everything works, nothing should break. Let's be less visible so that we don't have an attack vector from outside. This is all gone in a positive way. It doesn't mean we let hell break loose, but now it's like you can say you work for BitMEX. You can say how we do things because they are legit. It's a lesson learned with hindsight. So people think BitMEX was indicted for money laundering. Not true. They were indicted for not implementing or omitting to implement the KYC program, which is not money laundering. And here it comes. That was for the years 2016 to 2018, when there was no rule. You can't solve all problems of this world. We tried to do that in the meantime. We had the Beyond Derivative strategy, a good strategy, by the way, but it was completely too much for this organization to cope with. We were too few people, not aligned enough. Doesn't mean that this is a bad company. So what are we good at? We understand derivatives markets. We understand the settlement mechanisms. We understand safety and security in that space. We have a very pointed view on custody. So this is what we're good at. So let's stick to it.
Welcome to the New Money Podcast, the show where we talk about crypto and hopefully find out how the future of money exactly looks like. As always, in the back, I've got the Lydian Lion, the oldest coin in the world. And with me today, I've got Stephan, who is CEO at BitMEX and can tell us all about the future of this industry and where the coins are going. Stephan, great to have you on the show.
Thanks, Ferdinand. Great being here.
Amazing. So BitMEX is obviously an OG of the industry, I think widely known as the inventor of the perp swap, and to this day renowned for liquidity, deep order books, reliability, institutional traders. And you guys have become a key player in the crypto derivative space, right? And Stephan, you're the CEO at BitMEX. You took over in 2021 as CFO, if I'm not mistaken, and then moved into the CEO role 2022 during an interesting point in time, right? Right ahead of regulatory action in the States, FTX, and all these exciting things. So I hope we're going to cover a lot of ground today, and we're going to talk about your journey into BitMEX, right? You're German in Singapore. How did that happen? Navigating the crisis and navigating the challenges at hand. What's up? What's up next, right? What kind of products you guys excited to ship? And kind of excited to get your view on the market. We're going to talk about hyperliquid and decentralized exchanges. What's up with those? And BitMEX's zero hack history and how you guys think about security. I think that's for me the brief agenda. And let's see how much of that we will be able to cover in a short episode. I'm excited. Our mutual friend Christian from KuCoin said that you are one of the smartest people he knows and that you have an answer to everything. So I'm excited to put that to the test today. And
yeah, let's see.
Let's get into it, right? Stephan, I had a look at a couple of old interviews, and in one you said that the BitMEX offer felt like winning the lottery. Why was that such a special moment in your professional life?
Well, because by chance, that's why I said it's like winning the lottery. Two things came together, which until that day, no one, I would say, knew, was, let's say, we discussed in 2020 whether I would join BitMEX. And BitMEX actually asked, not because they knew me already, but because of the regulatory action, the legal action. They wanted to professionalize the finance function and help the company grow, basically. And then you look for people, if you look at my LinkedIn profile, hey, PwC, Deutsche Börse, banking, like, yeah, okay. It's an obvious, I mean, not fit, not personally, but like from the profile, it's like, yeah, this is what you look for. So when they asked me, I was like, man, wow, this is it. Because I was involved in the more DLT space, I would say, not crypto space, since 2015. But only on personal level. My whole professional network didn't know about this. They didn't know. I mean, and the thing how I got into this was I did a lot of advisory work for central banks, regulators, financial institutions in Southeast Asia for years at that time. And while I was focused on basically too big to fail regulation and how do you resolve banks, how can you recover them in a crisis situation, stress testing, etc., which is all about data in the end. The main pain point about this is, I mean, if you want to value all the assets of a bank in 24 hours or over a weekend, you couldn't do it, and you can't do it today, frankly. It takes ages. So this is a data thing, and then you look at blockchain technology, maybe there is something. And then I learned in this region where I'm now, which I call home, around half of the population, give or take a few, depending on country, they don't have access to banking services. At least not outright banking services like you know it in Europe, not even what you have in the US, which is already a difference to Western Europe. Western Europe is the most overbanked part of this globe. And so there is no doubt that you can do payments, even get loans. 100% of the population has access to bank accounts. Forget about this in Southeast Asia. You can just forget about this. And the people will never have access to, I mean, never is a big word, but let's say in the next 10 to 15 years, they won't have access because it's not a technological problem. They all have mobile devices, have tablets, they might have laptops. That's not the thing. And they are versed enough to do that, but they lack the identity thing. They don't get passports. They lack proof of addresses, right? Which you need to have proper bank accounts and access to the system. And then I went into it, looked into it and said, wait, there is this crypto thing out there. I mean, this sounds really, really bad. I looked first time at blockchain technology in 2012 when I still worked for Deutsche Börse, where the question was, will that replace the then current security settlement infrastructure? And the answer to at that date was no, because the performance was way below what was necessary. This change is still slightly, we're not there yet, I guess. We need to replace equities trading in real. I mean, you can tokenize it, it's a different thing, but let's park that for a moment. But then 2015, really getting into it, remittances, distributed autonomous organizations as a digital twin for a cooperative, a thing that's very known in Europe. A cooperative is very known in Europe. It's hardly known anywhere else in the world how you do that. So I'm like, wow, DAO, cooperatives, payments, this is it. And I went down the rabbit hole looking at all of this. And let's say 2020, when I was asked, I was like, man, finally I can do this professionally. And I love to do things professionally. When I'm interested in something, I want to do it. I love talking about it. So it's not, and you see it already now. I love talking, but ultimately I want to see it. I want to get my hands around it. I want to get my hands dirty even with it. So it was like, wow, that's winning the lottery. I can do something that I'm passionate about and that I want to really get into. Number two, I was already in the space and I understood enough about the technology. So it was not just completely newbie stuff. And then even the ask was fitting to my prior professional experience, right? So I had exchange experience, legal compliance, finance, tick. So that was winning the lottery. You hardly have in your career, or I had in my career, something that was fitting more. So it took me less than 3 days to say yes. And everyone was astonished. So at BitMEX, like, what, you don't want to negotiate? Really, it was like, you don't want to negotiate further? I'm like, no. I did my diligence. I know what's going on legally. I had a look at all the things. I believed at that time they were not, let's say, true is the wrong word, but they were not justified. So I'm like, hey, I can live with that. No problem. This is a legit exchange. I knew it anyway. Biggest insurance fund, never hacked, etc. I'm like, there is something to it. So cool thing. But the worst reaction was from my previous network. They were like, wow, why do you throw away 20 years of a career in traditional finance? I mean, next step for you is like senior management positions. I was equity partner at PwC. I'm like, no, I want to do this. And then, as you say, very interesting time. It unfolded in a wheel. With hindsight, everyone's, yeah, that's fine. I'm like, no. The story is a little bit more diverse and a little bit more dramatic.
It's funny, right? In a way, it expands the lottery analogy, because I think common advice that lottery winners get is don't tell your family and friends. Because the reaction will be disadvantageous. How did that go? Like so professional network kind of didn't get it, and your family. I mean, Germany to Singapore, that is quite a distance. I think a bunch of folks that we talked to in preparation for the podcast told us that was a big step personally also. Like how did that feel?
For me, yes, big step, but then in a way, it's like a seed falling on fertile ground. That's how I would say it. So it wasn't clear that it will grow, but there was something. Why? Number one, as I said earlier, I have been to the region, so to say, for quite a while. So not living there, not moving house completely, but I spent time in that region like 3 years, 4 years before already, and was there once in a while. So I was often to Malaysia, to Indonesia, Japan, stuff like this. So it was something like, yeah, known. Singapore as a city was known to me anyway. So it was not a blank sheet of paper. But the funny thing, and you say that validly, was actually, it was my wife. I mean, I went to her and said, hey, I have an offer here. I would love to do it, but hey, it's a high risk thing. It would require moving to Singapore or Hong Kong with a whole family, because I can't do that remotely. This is something you cannot do with fly in, fly out. So what do you think? And it took her literally like 2 minutes saying nothing. And then the answer was, oh, we can do Singapore. That amazed me because she worked full time at that time on her own, let's say, things, a full-time job, fully settled. And I asked her why. And she said, you know what, Stephan, you were traveling around the globe already now for years, and we are already always at home. And maybe that's an experience for us. And if you really want to do it, I mean, if we don't do it now, like from the age bracket perspective, we will never do it. So let's try. I'm like, wow, the rest is history by now.
Interesting. And before we dive into the professional adventure, how do you like Singapore? Like what does Singapore do better than Germany?
Oh, no, that's a podcast for itself. I mean, this is really something I learned over the past years. I would say it's a funny thing. It's not a funny place, but it's an interesting place because Singapore has learned a lot from Germany. The setup of Singapore is basically the founding father of modern Singapore, Lee Kuan Yew. He went to Germany, he went to Switzerland and to Israel. And he wanted to learn from Switzerland. This is known. I mean, he even wrote books about that. He wanted to know from Switzerland how a small nation can be economically successful. He went to Israel on how to defend yourself against much bigger neighbors. And he went to Germany, and this is a funny thing, this is really funny, for city planning. So Singaporeans learned city planning. So how do you set up a city? Because Singapore wasn't existent, basically. You need to see what Singapore was in the 60s and what it is now. Now it's, let's say, for Germans, it's a metropolis, 6 million inhabitants. But it was a small, dirty place at that point in time. So, but he wanted to do something out of it. So he went to Germany, mostly to Hamburg. He was good friends with Helmut Schmidt and learned city planning. I mean, not himself just alone, but he took his guys with him. And the funny thing is, Singapore just continued to do it in a disciplined way. That's the only thing. You see, I would say German city planning at its height just continued in a disciplined way. The guys planned the city 20 years ahead. Infrastructure projects are planned like for 20 to 25 years ahead. And they adjust. It's not that they are stubborn, but they keep the direction. So it's not like, hey, let's do this. And then 5 years later, oh, it wasn't a good idea. Let's do something else. And then again, let's do something else, right? Which is with infrastructure that you need to build for decades, basically, you shouldn't do. And this is what they do. I mean, if you look at their biggest projects, yes, they have delays too. So it's not all like golden and shiny. They have the same problems. But if you look at my thing is they moved the port, and they moved the port in a 20 years project and doubling the capacity of the port. And they're in time, on schedule, and in budget. They were delayed because of COVID. They built a new airport terminal, which is another lighthouse project. And this Terminal 5, will basically have the capacity of Terminal 1 to 4 combined. And they're in scope. I mean, they're not in time because of COVID. It's 2 years lagging because they stopped in between. But they go full steam ahead. And then they deal with all the conflicts. They have the same conflicts. Should something be used for a different purpose? What is the conflict of interest with the local people? So you have the same thing, but they manage it in a very constructive way and not in a formal way. So they are always looking to what they want to achieve, and then they adjust the means to it. It's not that they fix the means and then the result, we don't care. And I think that's the biggest part. Another part which I find amazing, and then we should stop it, otherwise we speak for 45 minutes about Singapore, is this thing of how do you deal with migrants? What people don't recognize who are not here, Singapore is made up of migrants. 40% of the population are non-Singaporeans. And they are, let's say, working migrants, really working migrants at the top end. You can consider myself as being there, and on the lower end. And why did they do it? Because they figured out they can't close borders. I mean, theoretically they can because it's an island, but it doesn't work in a good way. So they made a business case out of this, bringing value to Singaporeans as well as to the ones that come into the country for a certain period of time. And they're just pragmatic about it. They are very strict about the rules. It's not easy. It's not like, hey, it's an open door policy. But if you have something to offer, and if you're willing to play according to the rules, it's something for everyone. So, and this is what they do. And then on top of it, they don't speak about integration. Singapore is a multi-ethnic, multi-religious, multi-language country, right? I mean, English is the most spoken language, but you have Mandarin. I always get that wrong. I think it's Tamil. So it's for the Hindu population, and Malay as main languages. You have Buddhism, Christianity, Islam, and Hinduism as the main religions, and it's all completely commingled, right? I mean, it's not that the Chinese are all Buddhists. No, 50% of the Chinese are Christians. Amazing thing. And it works. Why? Because they say it's about harmony, not integration. You don't need to assimilate people, but you need to respect the other people. And they enforce it by heart in all directions, right? So you can't do missionary stuff in Singapore. You will be sent to jail for that. So this is quite interesting to see those differences between Germany and Singapore, where you say, I mean, it's not all golden, as I said, and they have conflicts too, of course, but they seem to have gotten the points more correctly what it's about. And they are less ideologic, they are pragmatic.
It's interesting. Sometimes I wonder if it's just, once again, all about execution, right? Because I think, as you said, like they took the principles and maybe just executed them more stringently. I think I wonder, because when I go abroad, I don't know, like if people know, probably people here, but I'm German as well, by the way. I go abroad, maintains this pristine reputation of being great builders and executors and being diligent and on time. And in fact, there are now so many memes in Germany. I don't know, like the Berlin airport, like 10, 15 years delay. Like it has become such a meme internally. There's such a discrepancy, I think, probably the largest discrepancy of any nation in the world of like potential and realized execution. And so sometimes I wonder if it's really about just, I don't know, like building better and executing better. But we'll leave that to another day, and we'll jump into the micro things and building a company called BitMEX. Let's unpack like the turbulent times when you joined, right? In my head, there are like two things happening. First, regulatory action in the US, and then FTX. Let's start maybe with US regulatory action. How do you manage that? Was that like the prime objective? Did you try to delegate that to not be too distracted? Like, what was the strategy for you as a leader there?
I mean, the legal and regulatory action in the US were clearly a distraction to the business, and frankly, it was a big blow to us because we needed to scale down our activities in the market, our visibility. I mean, that was the advice we got from the legal guys. So scale down your activity, scale down the visibility. Still operate, so there is nothing illegal about it, but make sure that you don't open up unwanted areas for attacks, right? So it's like IT security. Don't open yourself to attack vectors, right? So that was it. And we lost actually dramatically in market share during this period of time, but it was necessary in a way to steer, let's say, out of more trouble there. I mean, with hindsight, and we have been cleared for everything basically right now, which is we are very proud of. But at that time, it was tough. So it was clearly more on the legal guys. There was a lot of effort we needed to take to compile data to make our case, right? I mean, in short, what it was, and this is often misunderstood, it's a very minor thing, but it has a huge impact. So people think BitMEX was indicted for money laundering. Not true. Really. I mean, I just need to leave it here. Not true. They were indicted for not implementing or omitting to implement the KYC program, which is not money laundering. I mean, I know people might argue about it, but it's not money laundering. And we have never been indicted or there was never a saying that we actually laundered money. It was just, hey guys, you omitted to implement the KYC program. And here it comes. That was for the years 2016 to 2018, when there was no rule. Even in the US, it wasn't clear. Is it falling under Banking Secrecy Act? Is it banking regulation as such? What is crypto actually? BitMEX never touched fiat money. This is another thing that is often misunderstood. So you need to have crypto already if you come to BitMEX. So this whole thing was basically, it was that famous, now with hindsight, we are allowed to say it was regulation by enforcement. There was no regulation. And this is why I joined the firm, because I looked at the facts, knowing that for myself, I'm like, this is pointless. I mean, you can't get around it. If the administration wants to go after you, they will. But actually, the company didn't do anything wrong. And then, often forgotten as well, BitMEX was the first crypto exchange globally that had a fully verified user base. That was in 2020. It started well before I joined. And when I joined, actually, this project was finished. So the funny thing is, if you really think about it, substance over form, you're like, what's the matter, guys? I mean, all of our competitors did KYC like 2 years later. They started with KYC for high-risk customers, high-value customers, but they always had the minimum thresholds, et cetera. Didn't. When this was implemented, either you were fully verified, like identity, address, et cetera, or you weren't allowed to trade on the platform. Actually, BitMEX decided, before I joined even, to frankly kick out 1 million of their registered users by this exercise. So that tells you something. And this was part of why I felt comfortable personally to join BitMEX. I'm like, hey, those guys are legit. They are really legit. They walk the talk. They are not recognized for it, but they walk the talk. So you could wake me up in the middle of the night, and I didn't have sleepless nights because of that. And this is for me always, even professionally, something I want to. I want to be able to wake up, or we be woken up in the middle of the night. And if someone says, hey, what's up with ABC? I want to be able to answer. And number two, I want to have a good feeling about it. So that was pretty difficult. And managing when I joined, the funny thing, we had that ongoing and we wanted to grow. So we grew the company quite heavily in terms of members of staff. When I joined, like beginning of 2021, we were around 200 people. And at the end of 2021, we were around 400. And then, as you said, next stop, TX. FTX was already the third one, I think, in the row, if I remember that correctly.
We'll get to that in a second. Some technical learnings, right? You're a manager, leader, dealing with adverse regulators. Like, technically, what did you learn? Like, how do you do that well? Like, what were some of the mistakes you did in executing the initiative, basically?
Well, and it wasn't just me, frankly. This is a group exercise, right? and our lawyers and our legal team, big credits to them and to founders as well to stay firm. I think what I learned and what we did correctly is, although there was a settlement where it's always those settlements are on a no, admit, no, what is it? So you neither admit nor you reject it. It's a very weird thing in the US, but staying firm, not giving in. If you believe what you did is correct, staying tall. Not in an aggressive way, not like bragging about it, not like being aggressive in public, but in the negotiations, in the court case, etc. Not giving in, providing the evidence. And then if you have provided the evidence, just saying, hey guys, let's go back to the facts, right? Narrative has a place, but it's about facts. So don't go to alternative facts. Don't allow your counterpart to go to alternative facts, but don't move into alternative facts yourself. Otherwise, you're done, because then you have that thing, if you're woken up in the night, you tell contradicting stories and then it doesn't work, then you're done, right? So this is what we did well, I would say, and where we really have been true, and everyone worked on it. It was a huge effort. It was a huge effort for the IT teams. To basically get data and analyze data for years and years of transactions. You need to think we are a real exchange. We have like millions of transactions a day. And you need to compile them in a way that they are readable for regulators, right? It's not like a data dump, like, here, take this. They can't work with that. You need to do the work for them. Not in a bad way, it's just usual. So, but what we did, I would say, what I learned as well, where we could have been better, is that during this time, with hindsight, we deprioritized developing the business for efficiency reasons, for reasons of, we don't want to break the system, right? But with hindsight, I would say, if I could have something done differently during that time, I would have invested more at the expense of even more exhausted people in the organization, more into the development of the business. Basically, business development, product development stopped for a period of the better part of 3 years, which is really something that hits you harder later. It doesn't hit you during that time. That was a discussion. Okay, if we don't, let's say, roll out a new system on the back end, will that have impacts on the revenues? And the answer is, well, today, no. No one will leave the platform just because we don't have the latest stuff. Hey, if we have a 20% lower latency, worse latency than our competitors, is anyone leaving? You go around, you ask your main customers, and they're like, yeah, we can deal with it, no problem. You're like, okay, then let's focus on the other stuff that's more pressing right now. But you accumulate tech debt over a long period. You accumulate debt in terms of your products, UI, UX stuff, over a longer period of time that you then cannot actually overcome in a short period of time. And that's the key learning, where I would say this, and together with, it was a deliberate decision to stay silent, not be visible, but this is as well, for a certain period, no one notices it because people know you, everything's fine. But if you stay silent for 3 years, still now I have two camps. When I go to conferences or I speak to traders, the one set is, yeah, BitMEX, yeah, and it's cool that you do more, but we just waited for that cool thing. And the others who are new to the industry, they're like, BitMEX, I heard of this. You're still in business? Over-exaggerating the point, but this is really it. And this is the result of basically staying 3 years out of the public domain.
So basically sticking to the facts, staying firm, and I don't know, like balancing the urgent and the important, right? And not...
Yes.
forgetting about
Yes.
what's to come after the regulatory action. I think it's an interesting one.
Exactly.
You mentioned like, hey, it's a team action, and I guess guys, you probably work with a bunch of lawyers. I'm currently hiring a lawyer for Ivy. How do you spot a good one?
I have to admit, I was so lucky because we had good talent already on board when I joined. So the major thing has been done already. But what I enjoy working with our legal and compliance team is our legal and compliance senior guys. They are very business oriented. They needed to learn it, but they really understand by heart what we do. So they speak eye to eye with our business people. Yes, they take care of the legal and compliance matters, but they know how the platform works. Our head of legal, he knows almost as good as our head of product how the platform works and how orders are matched, how the insurance fund works, how our settlement procedures work, right? How the audit mechanism in the machine works. Our compliance guys trade themselves. So they know, hey, if there is a customer or a trader coming and I do enhanced due diligence, for example, what do I really need to look for? Right? It's not just, of course you need to check boxes. That's part of the game, but it's not just about checking boxes. And that is what I enjoy. So I wouldn't say you definitely need to look for A, B, C, but if you have a feeling like you can engage, they don't need to be business developers, right? They don't need to be salespeople. But if you feel you can engage with them and you can speak with them about the business and they are interested, that's the best part. Then they can learn, then they are willing to learn. And then you can come to something where you have a more or less eye to eye and a trusted conversation. So not going against each other. Of course, there are conflicts, right? If you want to have a 100% secure base for KYC AML, what you have is you want to be secure, you want to be safe, better be safe than sorry, right? Whereas the business guy is probably rather sorry than safe. Right? Because it's the thing with the false positives and all of that stuff, right? And how much time do you need for onboarding? So, but then you can come together and say, hey, we have the same goal. We want to have a platform that acts with integrity. We don't want to have bad actors. Why? It's not even about, I hope the regulators don't get me wrong. It's not about money laundering and terrorist financing. But if my firm desire is to launder money or to finance illicit activities, you distort price discovery. And we want to have good price discovery. So I always agree with the espoused or explicitly stated goals of regulation, totally, because that's what we want to do. This is how BitMEX was founded. Our founders founded BitMEX because they had the experience of Mt. Gox, the first large-scale scam. It was basically FTX 0.0. Right? If you look at Mt. Gox and FTX, it's basically the same. So, and they founded BitMEX because they wanted to have a venue where this doesn't happen. So you have a complete agreement on the goals, but not on the means. That's the thing.
I think it's an interesting one. I think like for in-house counsel, I agree, right? These can be like great business partners. External counsel, in my opinion, has been like for me the hardest like professional services product to manage. I don't know, like my experience, very often very, very expensive and getting very little in return. Like how much did you rely on in-house and external teams? And I can only wonder, like, how much does such a project cost in terms of legal fees spent externally?
I won't comment on that one. It is. Whatever you say, take it times 10. Then you know what it costs. No, really, it is. But especially if you deal with US legal system, it's just part of the game. Me as a European, I was like, what's going on here? Right? Because the system in Europe is very, continental Europe is very different. It has, for Anglo-Saxons, it's not understandable because it's not so clear cut in a way, but it's way more cost efficient, frankly. Regardless of what you do, it's always less costly. But in the US, it's just part of the game. And you need to have a good, that means relatively expensive, lawyer. It doesn't need to be a top law firm. That's not the thing. But every good lawyer is well paid in the US, and you need to have them it's like a chaperoning broker.
Yeah.
Right. So it adds credibility. That's the thing. You don't need the credibility in the continental European law system usually. That's not what it's for. Buying a name, why? It's about content. It's a lot more substance over form. I would say in the US, it's a little bit more form over substance. Not in a bad way. It's just how it's played. So you can't get around the external advice, but you need a good in-house counsel to direct the external counsel.
Yeah, I think it's funny. I went to law school, right? And in a way, I always thought in Germany, and I thought, actually, the US system sounds a bit more fun, right? I think this is where the real kind of like you do the big speech type of thing actually happens, right? And you have to get a great suit and these type of things. I had the feeling in Germany, it's as you said, like it's much less form, which as pros and cons. Hey, we got to move forward. And I think like all of this, I think that this has all changed, right? You guys settled, Trump pardoned the BitMEX founders earlier this year. Maybe briefly, what's your view on the States now, and how does that feel, and how does that change the way you operate the business?
Well, what it clearly did is it took away a lot of, let's say, weight off our shoulders. And what I said earlier, and this is the change we're in right now, because it's so fresh. We need to mentally change the way we operate, right? So far we always were better be safe than sorry, make sure everything works, nothing should break. I mean, we don't want to break things, right? And especially not for our customers, but nothing should break. Let's be less visible, right? So that we don't have an attack vector from outside people coming in, especially from the regulatory side. This is all gone. In a positive way. It doesn't mean we let hell break loose. This is not what we want to be. And this is why I say it's even a transition for the team. It's like, hey, we can be open. We could be open before. This is, as I said, it's a lesson learned with hindsight, right? But now it's like, hey, no, go out. You can say you work for BitMEX. You can say how we do things, because they are legit. They have been always legit all the way through, but now we are more open. And we need to establish our place in the public domain, more or less, which is why I'm traveling so much these days, using basically every opportunity to speak, right? I mean, not like promoting. It's not just a sales effort. It's not like, hey, come to BitMEX, here, a nice feast, da, 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 da. Yes, that's part of it. That's what the team does. But like establishing our place, getting a seat at the table, so to say, again. This is really the thing. And this is a mindset shift, really. Yeah. If you're an American football fan switching from defense to offense, right? And usually in American football, and I love that analogy in a way, because the offense line are different players than the defense line. But you can't exchange all the people you have, right? So you need to basically switch in your head and say, okay, now it's offense again. So we need to do something differently. And this is the, I would say, the next big change. We say never a dull moment at BitMEX, and it's true.
No, that's good. That's good. Let's briefly look at FTX. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I kind of just want to get you thinking on how that changed your view in the market, and also like how that influenced decisions for you at BitMEX, I think in two distinct areas. One being regulatory, right? I think like part of the FTX discussion has always been, they're in the Bahamas, like, is the oversight just not sufficient? Like, was that part of the problem, or was it individual bad actors? I think that has been a big part of the debate. I mean, you are obviously offshore. How did you feel about that? Was that ever a discussion for you guys, or was it just impossible to offer the products you offer with any kind of different regulatory setup?
Well, that's a big one. Okay, let's dissect that for a moment. My firm belief, and coming from TradFi, having worked in and with regulation myself, I have usually goodwill towards regulation. So I'm not belonging to the conspiracy camp here. But what regulation, even in the banking industry, I would say mostly got wrong, is that they look at it at, let's prevent unwanted results. It doesn't focus, and this is where it came from. State regulation comes from, here was a problem, we don't want this problem to happen again. Frankly, that's it. It's different to self-regulation. If you look at, for example, ISDA, which is a big self-regulatory project, so to say, in the banking industry, this actually yielded a lot, but it wasn't state-owned, right? Why? Because the focus of state regulation usually is, here is something that happened, we don't want to happen this again. Let's make sure it doesn't happen again. Whereas this more self-regulation is, what do we actually want to achieve? What is a target state that we want to achieve, which is a positive outlook? It uses the same means in the end, but your look into the future is different. One look is preventing something, and the other one is creating something. And there we have in crypto, which was let's say the bad thing about regulation over the past 10 years, basically. It was always like, we need to prevent something from happening. And this basically chokes the whole industry. So one, preamble. Now to the thing. Because of this, I don't believe that actual supervision really is something. What does supervision or regulation give you? It is, let's call it a rubber stamp exercise. And it's no criticism towards the regulators. What does it give you? So in crypto, if you're crypto native, our crypto native customers, they don't care whether we are offshore, whether we are onshore, whether we are regulated by the Bahamas, Bermuda, Seychelles, VARA, under MiFID, you name it. Why? Because our service offering is very niche. We offer derivatives trading, perps, futures, a couple of others. We don't touch fiat money. We don't offer payments. So we are not a bank, right? So what is it about? You want to know, are we neutral? So do we make markets against our own customers? No, we don't. Proof of reserves, proof of liabilities, twice a week. Security, Well, we even open up our books sometimes to our customers to have, not a real audit, but to have a look into that, right? KYC, anti-money laundering program, market supervision. And this is something, if you know your game, you can evaluate yourself whether your counterpart, your exchange is legit or not. A regulator, so let's assume we would be licensed by any national competent authority in the European Union, because we too are German, so right. What does it give you? Content-wise, frankly, again, no criticism, not a lot, because you hand in hundreds of documents, which are basically policies. And the first real audit they do is probably after 2 to 5 years. So what it gets you is you have good documents, you have good policies, whereas crypto and the digital asset space is about you can police that in real time. This is the thing that I think hasn't been recognized fully by national competent authorities yet. Actually, they could supervise this industry way better if they just, I always say, just open up Blockchain Explorer and have a look, right? And policies, procedures, it's all necessary for good corporate governance. I don't say we shouldn't have any of those, but relying on those doesn't give you a thing. But what does it give you? If we want to onboard, for example, or if we want to have a bigger bank on board with us, then we need to have it, because they're legal and compliance guys and even they're operational guys. The only chance they have is to say, has somebody else looked at this and have they rubber stamped that they are legit? This is what it gives you. And there it's necessary. It's again, it's like with the US law system, it's part of the game. I'm not against it. It's just like, hey, but this is what it gives you. It doesn't give you a superior quality. So whether you're in the Bahamas or somewhere else, yes, to a certain extent, but operationally, not really. Not really. FTX wouldn't have been prevented if they would have been, you couldn't be regulated or licensed by any US authority at that time. So going to the Bahamas was a natural thing. It's like Luxembourg, right? For the US, Bahamas is like Luxembourg in Europe. Well, if I go to Malta and get my license there, yeah, okay. It's a good thing. Sorry, maybe not a contrarian view, but I'm pretty open about that.
Yeah, no, so I think it's basically form over substance, and the educated buyer can assess substance themselves, especially in crypto. I think it makes sense, right? I think there are counter arguments, right? But I think on the other hand, we've had this discussion at length in Germany with Wirecard, for example, right? One of the biggest supervised fintechs in Germany, public company. And obviously the worst case scenarios. Okay, so got it. So basically regulation, kind of like sticking to the strategy. Product wise, I think we talked to a couple of people who kind of credited you with what they call like a back to the roots type product strategy, right? Like moving out of spot or all these ambitions that might have been floated around, and kind of like sticking to the core derivatives at trading business. Like, how did you think about that? And did FTX play a role in that? Or was that something you guys formed an opinion on earlier?
Our strategy, back to derivatives, back to the roots, right, was rooted in I would say a couple of learnings. Actually, and we learned that by heart, right? So number one is, why was BitMEX successful in the first place? Because BitMEX our founders solved a couple of problems. It's always regarded as, hey, the inventor of the perpetual swap, which is true. But the invention of the perpetual swap had, I think it's three major components. Number one is that the real thing, the perpetual swap, which is a constantly rolling future, basically, if you look at it. You can depict it in a different way. Quants will tell you something different, but basically it is the derivatives. It's a derivative equivalent to a spot trade. But this is just one thing. This wouldn't have solved a lot. Number two was, how do you bring supply and demand, so longs and shorts together, which is the funding mechanism. That's the funding rate. And number three, how do you make sure that people that haven't done counterparty credit risk analysis with each other can trade with each other and not everything blows up? The thing is, Ferdinand, if you go long, I go short, and I run out of money, so out of collateral, you still want to get your money if you're still on a positive streak, right? You don't want to be forced closeout, which is called auto-deleveraging. And then this whole mechanism with the insurance, self-funded insurance fund, and the mechanism and the liquidation engine, etc. This actually allowed, together with 8-hour settlement cycles. These days we do 10-minute settlement cycles, right? So we are basically real time if you look at the blocks. This is actually all together which made BitMEX successful, because it gave you a product that's tradable, that was more efficient than trading spot. Okay, the leverage played a part of course, but it's just one thing. But then being able to balance out longs and shorts without, at that time, professional market makers. And the third one was, how do I take out the credit risk, the counterparty risk? out of this together. And you can do this only for limited scope. You can say, I do this everywhere. It's like, for example, Apple. What Apple did for consumer products, right? In communication, you could say, yeah, do that somewhere else. But they don't, because they focus. Because you can't solve all problems of this world. We tried to do that in the meantime. When I joined, we had the Beyond Derivatives strategy, a good strategy, by the way, right? But it was completely too much for this organization to cope with. On paper, in theory, completely the right thing, because this is where it goes. If you want to maintain a big market share like Binance, for example, Binance is not one thing. Binance is not just in exchange. They have spot markets, they have derivatives markets, they have payments. It's about yield products, it's about savings products, right? I mean, you have everything, including peer-to-peer networks. And this is why it works. It works like a universal bank. If you want to be there, you need to do this. But it wasn't possible for this organization to do that. We were too few people, not aligned enough. I mean, again, this is like self-criticism. It doesn't mean that this is a bad company, but we just realized that during crypto winter and say, can we actually deliver? No, we can't. So what are we good at? We understand derivatives markets. We understand the settlement mechanisms. We understand safety and security in that space. We have a very pointed view on custody. I don't know whether we come to this. So this is what we're good at. So let's stick to it. Yes, it costs us market share. In the first place, it doesn't look that great. So we basically became from one of the major dominant players, because there was no other service offering, to more kind of a niche player these days. And we are here for crypto natives and Bitcoin maximalists, I would say. This is our sweet spot. People who understand Bitcoin and the crypto world, not so much the meme coins, not so much the old coins. We understand them too, but this is not really our sweet spot. And people who want to have a clear service. Right? Not just, let's see, I don't know what I need. I need something and I know what I need, and I want to have the best service, and I want to have people who are approachable. So our customer support, approachability, you see me here, right? We're not hiding, I always say. We're just different in that aspect. And so we want to focus on what we are good at.
No, it makes a bunch of sense. So basically back to roots, skipping the beyond derivative strategy, and now looking at 2025, playing offense again. What are like the 3 things that you're most excited to ship?
Well, what we shipped already, but we will increase is our multi-asset margining. So I always call it an institutional grade multi-asset margining. It's nothing new. The industry knows multi-asset margining since FTX. Well, but we learned they didn't really have multi-asset margining. That was just a big scam. Sorry to say, but this is it. We have competitors who are very good at it, but we want to build. We have now 5 margining currencies. Ripple is the last one that we added. We will add more. But what we look at is we want to make sure that we don't have huge haircuts. Having multi-asset margining, and sorry for educating here, but it's often misunderstood. So for the retail investor, it's like I dump all my coins in one account and then I get some margin that I can trade with. The business model of most exchanges, and again, no criticism, it's just a choice, is they offer high haircuts, which is as long as you have positive positions, positive P&L, not an issue at all. I give you an example. So I place Doge and I get a 20% haircut on Doge. So if I have $100 worth of Doge, I get $80 as collateral. So I start trading. If my position falls below 80, I am liquidated. So actually the exchange takes over my Doge position that is worth 100 for $80. So they actually make money out of this. We don't want this. We have haircuts, but our haircuts for the collateral we accept is like between 3 to 5%. And this is not for us to make money, but if we need to liquidate this position because the collateral is not sufficient anymore, we do it via market orders. We have no own market makers. We don't take it on our own books, and we need to have a buffer for the timing and the market price risk during that time until we did it. This is all. And this is why we are slower and why we take longer and why we are more cautious in taking on new collateral currencies, because we want to make sure that we have the routes to actually serve with a low or the lowest possible haircut there without taking principal risk, because we don't want to take principal risk. We are a service provider to our customers. So this is one where I'm excited to do more. Number 2, we are in the process of planning to move our data centers, which is like for a retail trader, not really a thing, but for the institutional players, market makers, high frequency traders, we are now in Dublin and we want to move to Tokyo to be where the whole industry is, so that in cross-venue trades have a more reliable latency, which is a big thing. So we expect that there is more opportunity for those, let's say, technologically advanced traders in the future. And we will move hopefully in Q3. Then we look for new liquidity. So we amped up our game to work with designated market makers as market making as a service. So where it's not about P&L and disguised prop trading, but really offering liquidity. It's more difficult than we thought because we want to have, let's say, neutral market makers. We want to have market makers who are there if the situation worsens as well. It's like this famous thing, you can lend out umbrellas, but if you want to have them back when it starts raining, it doesn't do a thing, right? And this is what we try to solve right now, right? We want to have the umbrellas when it rains, not when it's sunny. This is something, and then the last one I mean, what is visible, especially to the institutional world, probably will be third-party custody. We finally made up our minds to open up for this. I mean, we have a different ideologic view on it, but it's like everything else. If the rules of the game are as they are, you can decide to play by the rules that are made by others, or you step out of the game. That's the only thing. So we will move there too. And then on the more retail side, it's just a constant work, and our people are pretty exhausted. It's like amping up our game on UI and UX, because the old traders love how we look because they're used to it. Like people like me, we're old. We know Bloomberg terminals. We know the chunky trading terminals from banks, and we love it. But if you look at the new guard coming, like mid-20s to mid-30s, they are used to sleek and very neat UI, UX, very reduced, right? It needs to be intuitively applicable or usable. They don't want to read like the user guides and the documentation. It needs to be intuitive. And this is something that is really, I would say, giving us a headache positively. I enjoy this, but giving us a headache positively to change. So to combine the demands of our fans with the demands of the ones that are new to the game.
No, that's amazing. These were 4 things, 5 even, I think, but we're playing offense, so that's good. Let's move to a round of quickfire questions, right? I have like 3 or 4 questions, and I need you to answer in a single word or a single sentence. Why is Hyperliquid not the answer?
Because it's a one product company.
If you had to go to a deserted island for 10 years, this is the Buffett question, I think, put all your money into one of your competitors, which one would it be?
Tough one. Probably Coinbase.
Is ETH back?
Not yet.
What's something you've changed your mind about recently?
About the crypto industry. It's not one. We bifurcate. We have, sorry, that's not one word. I tried in one. It's the crypto industry, but I want to explain it. It's not the crypto industry anymore. We see the bifurcation of the one part that goes more into integrating with TradFi in the end, especially in Europe and in the US, I guess. And you see the more retail-driven, consumerish part that's more on the Asian side. So for me, it's always like meme coins. It's an institutional play these days, including Bitcoin. Whereas if you have meme coins, this is fast-moving consumer goods. This is a completely retail market, and they are different. And we shouldn't try, I mean, technologically, we're the same, but we shouldn't try to treat them in the same way.
Stephan, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast. We didn't get through half the topics we wanted to get through, but it was an amazing hour of conversation, talking about Singapore and Germany, times of crisis in BitMEX, and now playing offense again in 2025 and beyond. Thank you so much for joining us, and everyone who's listened and who liked it, do all these things, like, subscribe, share, whatever you want to do. And we do this every week, so see you guys soon.
Yeah. Hey, Ferdinand, thanks a lot.